Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. On today's episode, we'll be discussing whether they are hero, bum, or meh. As usual, I'm joined by my trusty co-host,
Tim Hammond.
Alrighty, and here's my best Marlon Brando, Tim. Okay, I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum. Which one is that I am? There you go. The fun fact: Marlon Brando has won 2 Academy Awards. I think 2 for Best Actor. One of the few people who have. So that was Marlon Brando from On the Waterfront, which won Best Motion Picture and Best Actor in 1954. For everybody who doesn't know that. So what's the difference between being revered or reviled? We're just kind of going to look at the different coaches, athletes, and owners of the Pittsburgh sports landscape, and we'll see what their lasting legacy is, and of course, we'll be the final arbiter on that. And once I say this, it can never change, and it's like written in stone, like the hieroglyphs in ancient Egypt. So just be forever, right, Tim?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So we'll start with one Frank Peter Angelo. He had 46 wins, 59 losses, and 6 ties in 141 games he played for the Penguins. He had a goals against average of 4.12 and a save percentage of 8.72. He wasn't the greatest goaltender of all time. After 1994, he only played in the minor leagues. He did start with the Penguins in 1988, so he played from the Penguins from 88 to, I think, 92, 91, 92. So obviously, why the reason for his hero-ness in this town is he made a save on, was that Peter Stastny in Game 6, I do
Correct.
believe?
Yes.
He was like, it was a bad play by, I don't know, it was a turnover, and he went to give the puck back to, is it Bob Airy or I forget who the defenseman is, and it went right to Peter Stastny. Peter Stastny literally had like the whole net to shoot at, and when he shot it, he literally shot it into Peter Angelo's glove, which he was like behind the net when he made the save. So it's pretty cool, and it launched the Penguins into their Stanley Cup run that year, which ended in their first Stanley Cup. So he's become somewhat of a folk hero. So I'm giving a final status of a hero. Tim, what do you think? What say you?
Yeah, great guy to start with for this theme, Steve, because no one will ever remember how much this town hated Frank Pietrangelo before that play. He was the guy that you never wanted to come in. If Tom Barrasso got hurt, oh God, no. Here comes Frank Pietrangelo. We're about to give up 6 goals. Right? People couldn't stand Frank Pietrangelo. And then he makes that save. So he was a bum. And then he makes that save. And like you said, he's forever immortalized. And deservedly so. That was an amazing play. And like you said, it launched the playoff run that led to a Stanley Cup. But such a great example of the thin line that separates people between hero status and bum status. So great example to start with.
Okay, the next guy up, we're sticking with Penguin goaltenders for 200, Alex. Louis Domingue, if anybody remembers him. I'll start with his hero status. He won a triple overtime game against the Rangers in that series, and he had the Penguins up 3-1 on the brink of eliminating the New York Rangers and their Vezina winning goalie. Who's it? What's that guy's name?
Igor Shesterkin.
Shesterkin. I don't know. It just has a bunch of consonants in it. How does that Saturday Night Live joke? So, and then here's kind of more of the reason. Like, he was a career minor leaguer. He'd spent most of his career in the minors. He had done some time with, I think, Tampa and some other teams, but I mean, he really hasn't had like a terrible like NHL career. He really has barely been. So they're kind of I think Tristan Jarry had gotten hurt and Casey DeSmith had gotten hurt. So this is their third string goalie. So they are kind of down to the last of the last here. And like I said, he won that one game. They had them up 3-1, and it goes to a game six after Crosby gets hurt in game 5. And this is probably the biggest reason he's a GOAT. This shot by, I think it's Kreider, and I'll play it for you right now.
The Vanderjag for Kreider. Wine shoots. The men lost it. They score! It hit off to Mig and crossed the goal line with 1:28 remaining. The Rangers take the lead.
Yeah, so that was 1:28 left in the third, and the game was at game 6. So the Penguins are on the brink. Once again, the game was tied, but they could have definitely beaten the Rangers there. And what happened was, like, Kreider shoots his shot from, like, what would you say, 5 feet inside the blue line? Mm-hmm. And, like, it's not that hard of a save. It was a pretty easy save, and it bounces off of Domingue's blocker and goes way up in the air and goes over his head for a goal. And the worst, it's like there's only 1:28, so the Penguins don't really have any time to recover. And it forces a game 7, which Tristan Jarry starts, but you could tell he was hurt, and they end up losing the series. So I don't know what to say. I'm calling him a more of a meh. I'm not going to go total bum on him because he probably played about as well as you could expect a minor league goalie to. And he almost beat the Rangers. And I think the bigger reason the Penguins lost was probably Sidney Crosby got hurt. So what say you, Mr. Tim?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you said, he was just a guy that got thrust into a situation that he had no business being in, and he did, like you said, did as well as you could expect. He almost had that hero status because of that game 1, because he wasn't expected to play. And didn't he eat like a huge meal or something in the middle of the game?
Yes, he ate spicy pork and broccoli. So I imagine maybe he had to go to the bathroom halfway through.
Well, he wasn't the game was in overtime. It ended up going into like 2 overtimes, and he just was like, "Well, I'm not playing tonight. I'm hungry." And then DeSmith gets hurt, and it's like, dude, you have to go into the game. Holding his stomach like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have eaten that gigantic spicy pork and broccoli meal. But then he won us the game. So yeah, he actually came very close to a hero status. But you're right, he doesn't deserve a bum status. That's not fair.
Yeah, so I tried to be here, like, fair here. Next up on the list is one James Conner. So we'll start with reasons for bum with him. He was hurt a lot, and he had some key drops and fumbles in big games. I remember he dropped the pass against the Jacksonville Jaguars that they ended up winning anyway, but I remember he was open again and Ben wouldn't throw him the ball. And people, like, he was hurt a lot, so people I remember, like, oh, he's not an NFL running back and da-da-da-da, this and that. Just, a lot of complaints. He can't catch the ball. Just a lot of complaints from people I would describe as Penn State fans. So the reason for hero was he beat cancer and had a solid career of 4 seasons with the Steelers. He always be a hero to me. He had a really good season, just to prove all those Penn State fans wrong. He went to the Cardinals, and he had a really good season with them. Not last year, but the year before. Last year, he kind of had some injuries again. I think he's having, like, I would say he's like a Yancey Thigpen, where he's like good every other year.
Yeah.
So, and that was even with Cliff Kingsbury as coach. So, I mean, he's got to be pretty good, right? I think he's a hero. What do you think, Tim? Are you joining the Penn State fans and calling him a bum?
Well, geez, I guess I can't now.
Yeah.
No, I love James Conner. He'll always be fondly remembered by me for his days at Pitt, and he was good for the Steelers. He had injury problems. I mean, that's just the way it was, and could he have been better had he not been injured all the time? Yep, he could have been. That's really the end of the story there, and his story of his triumph over having cancer when you're in college. Like, my goodness, he's a hero.
Yeah, I hate it when people, oh, he's not an NFL running back. Like, get the heck out of here. It's like, this guy's an NFL running back. Whatever. So moving on to somebody who we probably have all forgotten about, and maybe it's like denial. Maybe we just don't like to talk about him too much. Tim McKyer. Tim, do you remember Tim
Oh
McKyer?
yeah, I
How
do.
could you forget Tim McKyer?
I was there for the 1994 AFC Championship game.
You
I
witnessed
remember it
Tim
well.
McKyer in all his glory.
Yep.
So, reason for hero, and well, this isn't really in Pittsburgh, but he won 2 Super Bowls with San Francisco in the '80s, and then he went to Denver late in his career and got another one with Denver in '97. So, I guess that's his general overall hero. But as for Pittsburgh, the reason for bum that late touchdown covering Tony Martin in the the aforementioned 1994 championship game. Not a good look for Tim McKyer. And he was pretty upset after the game. And, there's always shots of him kind of crumpled on the ground like, oh, I lost us the game. I don't know. It's that one hurt for sure, Tim.
Yeah, looking back on that, it's we always need a scapegoat, right? And the Steelers were winning barely that game in the fourth quarter. It was a 3rd and long, and he was one-on-one with Tony Martin, and Tony Martin just beat him. I mean, Tony Martin was a good receiver. Tony Martin beats him on a 43-yard touchdown pass, and the Steelers still had a chance to come back and win that game, and their offense couldn't do it. Their defense had also given up a big play too. Alfred Papunu, who was like the tight end, they left him wide open.
Yeah.
That was how San Diego scored their first touchdown. The offense, they scored 1 touchdown in that game. So, I mean, there was plenty of blame to go around, but Tim McKyer kind of became the scapegoat. I mean, I agree he's a bum because that's how everybody sees him, but I don't think it's entirely fair.
I agree with you, Tim. He's a bum. And then I think I saw he had a nickname of Tim Frequent Flyer McKyer because late in his career he was free agent. He went a lot of different places. So
and everybody forgets too, he actually had a decent season before all that.
Yeah, and I think the reason they got him was because the year before that Rod Woodson got hurt, and they were like, okay, we need somebody in case Rod Woodson gets hurt.
The reason they got him is because the 2 cornerbacks, the year before, the cornerbacks were Rod Woodson and DJ Johnson.
And DJ Johnson left, didn't
he? And DJ Johnson left. And they had drafted Deion Figures.
Yeah.
So Deion Figures and Rod Woodson were supposed to be the starting cornerbacks. McKyer was supposed to be like the nickel back. Figures, if I remember correctly, had some injuries. He had I don't think that was before he got shot, but
yeah, it was.
But he was just supposed to be he was a veteran, like you said. He played on all the San Francisco teams. He was a veteran guy that provided depth. He made a big interception in the playoff game the week before that against Cleveland. Again, he was very solid. It was one play. The best cornerbacks in football get burnt by receivers sometimes. It happens. Right. I've always thought it was unfair that his whole time in Pittsburgh was defined by that one moment. And like you said, he took it very, very hard. He was crumpled on the ground. They had to carry him off the field because he felt like he blew the whole season, which again, I never thought was fair.
And he did get the last laugh on Pittsburgh because he won a Super Bowl with Denver. So
good for him.
Yeah. So yay, Tim McKyer, I guess. You're still a bum in my book. And that's the final word on it. So next on our list is Mr. Steve Peterson. And we kind of referenced him in our one episode of 2008, 2010 seasons. Here we go. This guy definitely falls solidly on this list, Tim, huh? Yeah, he's definitely a mixed legacy kind of guy. Reason for hero, he was responsible for bringing Pitt out of the dark ages. He hired Walt Harris, and he got Pitt into the ACC. Reason for bum, he hired Todd Graham. He moved out of Pitt Stadium, getting Pitt into the ACC. He has such a mixed legacy, and I wonder if it's more a factor of his first stint versus his second stint. His first stint was probably more successful than his second stint. So I kind of went with his first stint, he was a hero, and his second stint, he was a bum because he fired Dave Wannstedt and all that other stuff, and he was kind of just desperate to get Pitt into the ACC. So, what say you, Tim Hannon?
Yeah, that's a good summary. I would agree with all that, and we covered that in way more depth in the Tale of Two Seasons episode that we did recently, and we talked about Peterson's legacy. I think you're right. It's very much a mixed bag. So I like how you classified that as half hero, half bum.
Yeah, yeah. He's not even a meh because like he had his two tenures are so like exactly opposite.
Yeah.
It's so weird. So go figure. Next up on our list, and this should be another fun guy for us. Antonio Brown. Here we go. Reason for hero. He was really good. He was really good overall. He had a really solid career. He had a clutch catch against Baltimore in the championship game to get them to Super Bowl 45. You remember the helmet catch, Tim?
Yes.
And then he had a lot of other good seasons. He like made a lot of good catches. He even had a clutch catch against Baltimore. Was that a Christmas Eve or day game where he like went in there and got knocked around and scored a touchdown?
Yeah, that was Christmas, and that won them the division in 2016.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean he really did some really quality stuff. The only problem is he went totally nuts. And I always thought, and I still think this day, he's a bum. He's a bum because he's a stats guy, and he never won anything. The only reason he got to that one Super Bowl or the other Super Bowl with Tampa was there were other strong leadership people, and he wasn't a leader guy. He was just a guy on the team. He's kind of like a more talented Cedric Wilson. He never won anything, and you have to win stuff. People love this guy and think he's just the greatest wide receiver ever, and he's definitely talented, but I don't think of him anything more than just a stats guy. I just always hated that play at the end of the half. The Steelers would get the ball with 5 seconds left. And instead of like having Ben just chuck it into the end zone, we got to throw it to Antonio Brown so he can get his stats, so he can get like 30 meaningless yards and a catch. It was just so dumb. I don't know, Tim. I know you probably disagree with me on this. But...
No, I agree. I mean, the lesson here is that in football, and probably in every sport, you can't win Super Bowls with guys like that. That's the lesson learned.
You can. He just can't be the main focus.
Right.
He can't, because he won with Tampa, but he would, like I said, Tom Brady was the leader on that team. There were other players on that team that were the leaders.
Right. And when you're such a cancer on the team that you're bringing everything else down, which is what he ended up being, it works in direct opposite of you trying to win a championship. So it's unfortunate. The only like hesitation I even have a little bit is I've said this on the show before. I've been watching Pittsburgh sports for 40 plus years. If I had to name the 3 most exciting players to watch, he'd be one of the top 3. Him, Mario Lemieux, and Larry Fitzgerald. Like watching those 3 guys play was you could sit there and watch highlights of them all day. They were just so dominant, so good, so fun to watch. And it's such a shame that he was who he was, and it ended up the way he did, because he could have been so great and he could have won multiple championships, but in the end, it didn't play out that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of these guys just like wasted talent. You almost feel like they just didn't get it together completely or as much as you thought they should. So unfortunately for Antonio Brown, I mean, I don't. And then he's burned out every place he's been. He got himself kicked out of Pittsburgh, got himself kicked out of Oakland, got himself kicked out of New England, and then finally melted down in Tampa Bay and got himself kicked out of there. So yes, I'm sure all those other people were the problem, and he wasn't. So he's a bum.
Yeah, that's one thing that was a little bit satisfying about all that was all the stuff about people criticizing Ben and Tomlin.
Yeah.
It's like, well, Chucky couldn't handle him. Bill Belichick couldn't handle him. Bruce Arians, Tom Brady. These are all pillars of the NFL that couldn't handle him either. So this idea that Tomlin or Ben or somebody was responsible for him and supposed to set him straight, and that was just a bunch of BS.
Yeah. Amen to that. And that's enough about him. Moving on to another guy, Chuck Tanner. We have not mentioned Chuck Tanner much in the history of our podcast.
That's a good point. Yeah, we have not.
Maybe we'll have to do an episode here eventually.
Tell folks who Chuck Tanner is, Steve, if they don't know.
Chuck Tanner? He's the guy who sells peanuts down on the corner. Chuck Tanner was the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates the last time they won a World Series, believe it or not. That was in 1979. So obviously the reason he's a hero is he got the Pirates over the hump to their last World Series win in 1979. He was like this ultimate optimist. And I think he took over in 77 to, I think is 86, 85, 86. Yeah.
It was 85.
Yeah. Cause Leland took over in 86.
That was the really bad year where they almost left town that we talked about in another episode.
So he was always an optimist, always upbeat, and he kind of came up with this great philosophy on, like, he would call, like, what would he call it, lightning and thunder or something. Like, they would have guys steal a base. He had like a bunch of fast guys in front of like Willie Stargell, and who else did they have? Parker on the 79 team? Yeah. So like you would have your power hitters, and you would have a bunch of guys get on base before him, and then they would steal another base. And so then you would have another guy just, that would hit like, home runs or doubles or whatever. And, he was the guy who used Kent DeColvey in that creative way, put him in left field so he could pitch him without taking him out of the game, because he wanted Grant Jackson to pitch to another guy. So it was a very, very creative manager, very optimist, very likable guy. If you ever seen interviews, he's a very good interview. Unfortunately, the reason he's a bum, the reason for he might be viewed as a bum is, like Tim said, he let a bunch of drug dealers in the clubhouse. He honestly should have been more vigilant. Like, I understand, like, when people are out on the street doing their own thing, like, these are adults. You can't babysit them. But, like, seriously, who's that strange guy? Like, wasn't that part of the drug trials? Like, I didn't know that strange guy in the clubhouse. That's you're in charge there. You can't, like, Tim, at your workplace, if like a manager saw like some strange guy come in and he's like obviously doing something shady, wouldn't they kick him out? I mean, it's just common sense. But he never adjusted. He never addressed it. And the problem is it got out of hand. Like Tim Raines was like, yeah, road trip to Pittsburgh to get some drugs. Woo. Yeah. So it got really bad. And so what happened was there were the drug trials. Everybody got in trouble. Chuck Tanner got fired because of it. The Pirates almost left town over it. I mean, we almost lost our baseball team, all of this. And, the only thing good was they kind of cleaned house and they brought in Jim Leland, which ended up being a very good hire. But the problem was the final verdict on this guy. I think he's a hero because nobody else has won a World Series with the Pirates since him. And he's just like a very, very solid manager. It's just a shame that like he couldn't have controlled his like the actual clubhouse a little bit better. What do you think, Tim? There, am I off base on that one? I think he's still a hero, though.
Yeah, I agree. And this goes back to kind of what we were just saying about Antonio Brown. That you're right. So on one hand, I can't stand this mentality that some fans still seem to have over like the head coach is like, this is like the Vince Lombardi or Newt Rockne days where it's some kind of drill sergeant boot camp where they just have total control over the players and they have a curfew at night and they don't do anything anytime because coach is watching. I mean, that's an era that will never come back. When you're paying these guys gazillions of dollars, they're adults. They can do whatever they want. And that was even true in the 80s. Dave Parker was the first $1 million baseball player, right? So I hate that idea of the coach or the manager should control everybody on the team. That being said, to Steve's point, this was literally happening in the clubhouse. If this was happening out on the street, yeah, Chuck Tanner can't control all that. He probably should have done more. However, that does not nullify all the good things he did. So I'm with you. He's a hero, not a bum.
And he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He really is. He just probably the nice guy didn't act. He should have, like I said, when you see the guy in the trench coat hanging out over there, okay, who is that? I don't know. Get the hell out of here. Like, seriously. Yeah. All right. So moving on to the person who's probably the exact opposite of Chuck Tanner would be Michel Therrien. Michel Therrien would not have let you deal drugs in his locker room for sure. The reason for he's a hero, he was really the best thing that happened to the young Penguins. Like, they had that one season with Eddie Olczyk and like all the veterans, and everybody ran amok. And remember that, Tim? And they didn't really have much success.
I
And
do remember that we did
we
an
did a
episode
whole
about that.
episode on it. And so, so what Tyrion did is he came in and he got this young team some discipline, and he turned them around, and he got them all the way to the Stanley Cup final in his, would that be his third or fourth year, maybe?
It would have been his second full season, because he came in the middle of that 2006 season when they fired Olczyk. So so like 2.5 seasons he has them in the finals. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, the middle of the next year, the Penguins really are stinking. They are almost on the verge of being out of the playoffs. And so they fire him, and the Penguins that year actually go on to win the Stanley Cup that year. And it's just so weird that he had such a meteoric rise and fall. But I think he's just one of those coaches, and I've said this before about him. He's like a good turnaround coach, but his message, he's like Mike Keenan. He has like a shelf life, like all that yelling and screaming. After a while, people tune it out. And I think that's what happened to him. And I'm still going to call him a hero. I don't think the Penguins win their first Stanley Cup without him. And even though Dan Bylsma was the coach after he had been fired, as a lot of people credited him, and I think rightfully so, in winning that Stanley Cup. And so I'm going to say he's a hero, because that was a big turnaround. Like you said, the Penguins hadn't made the playoffs in a couple of years, and he got them back to the playoffs. Then he got them all the way to the final. It's just, I think his message started to wear off by the end of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. He definitely laid the groundwork for that first title, so he definitely deserves credit there. And like you said, he was there for a season, and that was our season of time, not a season of hockey. And that season was over, and the Penguins needed that for a time, and then they didn't. So it is what it is.
He did his job and did it well. And I think he still lived in Pittsburgh for a while. He might still live in Pittsburgh. He's really he really is attached to the area. So good for him. And the best is that time he cussed the locker room out in English and French. So just in case you didn't catch it in English, you can catch it in bilingual cuss out. That doesn't happen every day, huh? Moving on to another coach who left town. But this guy on his own, Ben Howland. And the reason for a hero was he got Pitt basketball to respectability. And that's unbelievable, because do we remember the state of Pitt basketball pre-1999? It was horrible. There were people robbing people, and they never made the tournament. I mean, I don't think they had won a game in the Big East tournament before that.
It was a dumpster fire of a program. It absolutely was. Just a total joke before.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, so Ben Howland shows up, and he gets him to the Sweet 16 a couple times, and then all of a sudden he decides UCLA comes with a truckload of money, and they're like, hey, I like money. You too? Oh, wow, cool. So he goes out there. Was it the head of Nike or something that paid him a bunch of money? I think it was one of the shoe companies. So every time you buy a Nike shoe, you're contributing to the leaving of Ben Howland. The old straight shame. So the final decision, I know I totally respect that he got Pitt to respectability, but I'm calling him a bum, because he should have stayed at Pitt and saw it through. If he stays at Pitt, maybe he lasts forever. Maybe he's still coaching Pitt basketball. Or maybe he realized that Pitt only had a limited amount of resources, and they were never going to go any farther than he could get them, and he decided it was time to cash in and get that big paycheck. I think he just got fired again from Mississippi State just this last spring. So, he's bouncing around out there, Tim. I mean, am I in the minority on the hating Ben? I don't hate Ben Howland. I just think it's annoying how he left for a bunch of money, and then I don't know. He had success, but he didn't win a national championship.
Yeah, he got them to the championship game, though. I mean, he came very close. This one's tough. I was really upset when he left. A lot of people were. I remember being at a restaurant. I went to use the men's room, and they had taken all the little urinal things that you put in the urinals, and they had put pictures of Ben Howland on it. so people were very upset when he left. But it's we could be accused of a little hypocrisy here, Steve, because we're saying Michel Therrien was a hero for laying the groundwork so that somebody else could take over the team and do well with them. And
But he got fired. He didn't leave.
I know. I'm just saying that Ben Howland kind of did the same thing. He took a team that was totally irrelevant, totally turned them around, set them up very well. Pitt fortunately had a good successor in place who is a guy that Howland groomed. So he did leave them in good hands, and Pitt had success after that. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on this one, even though I don't like him, and I really didn't like the circumstances.
You're going more with a meh.
Yeah, I'll go meh on that one.
Okay, well, fair enough. Speaking of guys that replaced guys, Dan Bylsma. Reason for hero, as we mentioned, he was the guy who replaced Therrien and got the Pens to a Stanley Cup. After that, boy, he didn't do much of anything else, did he, Tim? Reason for bum, he never got the Penguins back to the Stanley Cup. He was the coach when they lost to that ridiculous Flyers playoffs. He was the genius with Team USA that kept sending out TJ Oshie like 5 times in a row in a shootout. I just feel like his teams always underachieved. I never felt like they did what they are expected to do. He had so much talent on those teams. And even there was one year where Crosby and Malkin were hurt, and then like he makes it to the playoffs, and I thought, well, if he wins a playoff series, because they were playing Tampa, and I didn't think Tampa was that good that year, and they lost to Tampa in like the first round, and I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I just felt like he should have done more with the talent he had, and that's why I kind of list him as a little bit of a bum. And quite honestly, he hasn't had any success since then. I think he's a minor league coach for the Seattle team, like whoever the Kraken have as their minor league people. He's back to being a minor league coach, which was what he was before he came to the Penguins. And your thoughts on Mr. Dan Bylsma's bummer hero status there, Tim?
Yeah, another tough one because he won a Stanley Cup, and man, we all loved him for a while there.
But it was with Therrien's team. I'll say it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but Therrien couldn't beat Detroit, and Bylsma did. So I'm not going to take that away from him. I think the thing that bothered me more than the like underachieving was, and we talked about it in this episode we did about that 2012 playoff series against the Flyers. It wasn't just that they underachieved; is that they were not likable. they whined and they folded easily. Like when something went bad, they just collapsed and folded. That series against the Flyers, they folded. The conference finals against Boston, they scored 2 goals in the entire series. The series against the Rangers, they had a 3-1 lead, and they threw it away because they folded super easily.
Well, they were undisciplined too. They would take a lot of stupid penalties with him.
They would take a lot of stupid penalties. They would whine and cry and complain, and it just wasn't a likable team under Bylsma those last 4 or 5 years. So, yeah, I'm not going to argue with him being in the bum category.
Nice. Look at us. Who'd have thought? And you mentioned this guy earlier, Dave Parker. Reason for hero, great pirate, was a great hitter and a great fielder. People forget that, dude. Do you ever see the highlights of him throwing people out at home plate, Tim? They're on YouTube.
There's one from an All-Star game in the 70s where he guns down. I can't remember who the American League.
Pete Rose? No, was it?
It would have been somebody from the American League, but I mean, it's an amazing throw. Yeah.
He was a tremendous fielder. And he won the batting title in 1979, I think. And he was the league MVP in 1978. And he won the World Series with the Pirates in 79. He was a great player. And reason for bum, unfortunately, he got into drugs. And he was very confrontational with the fans. I don't know if it was like deserved or not. I didn't live through it. Like I was much too young for all that. Like, people were throwing batteries at him and stuff from the stand. So maybe Dave Parker had a point. I I'm putting him as a hero because he helped win a World Series and he was very good. I didn't realize he was the first $1 million player for. Was that with the Pirates or was that with somebody else?
I was with the Pirates, believe it or not.
Wow,
there was a time when the Pirates paid their players. Yeah, hard to believe.
Yeah, so Dave Parker, hero. I think that overshadows, even though the drugs and stuff. He did waste some of his career. I bet if he doesn't get into drugs, he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's probably like that diminished his stats, and I think that's a big reason. Like people complain that he's not in the Hall of Fame, and he just needed like a little bit more, I think, to put him over the top. I forget how many. I forget he has like. I don't think he has 300 home runs. I'm not sure. He might, but he definitely doesn't have 400. So.
Yeah, we talked about, so we did an episode about the Pittsburgh drug trials, and we called it "How Two Fans Nearly Destroyed the Pirates" because that's it's a very interesting story behind all that. And Dave Parker was really hated for a while here, and it feels like time has kind of healed all those wounds. They bring him back to PNC Park, and people cheer him, and I think he'll be fondly remembered.
He had 339 home runs, and normally, like you got to get to like 400 or 500 to really
I think
have a shot.
I think it's the drug stuff that kept him out of the Hall of Fame, honestly. I think, and
he had 2,000 hits. I mean,
but what the arc of his career, Steve, was he was super dominant in the early part of his career. He was winning MVP and batting titles, and then he had a lull there for the early part of the 80s through the middle part of the 80s where he was not a good baseball player, and that was when he was really addicted to cocaine. And then he had a little bit of a resurgence later with Cincinnati, and he had some good seasons. I think he made a couple All-Star games with the Reds.
Yeah.
So but imagine had he just been good for all those years.
He'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Definitely, I think he'd have over 400 home runs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. His career, I hate to compare it to like Kurt Warner because Kurt Warner didn't fade away for the same reasons, but it was
Kurt Warner's thumb got messed up. That's what happened to Kurt Warner.
Right.
Yeah.
But Kurt Warner, like really good seasons, league MVP, all that stuff, then kind of like faded into obscurity and then came back and had a very strong end to his career. And there was debate about him getting into the Hall of Fame for that same reason. Well, it's like, well, he kind of was like really good, then not really good, then really good again. Is that enough? And eventually, the football voters decided, yes, baseball voters are a little more stingy on who they put in the Hall of Fame. So maybe he'll get there someday. Who knows?
Yeah. He's very sick now, too. So it'd be nice to see him get in before he won't be alive to enjoy it. But next up on our list, another Pirate that maybe not as more infamous than Dave Parker. That would be Stan Belinda. Reason for hero, he was a great setup man and a pretty good closer even in the playoffs the year before. He set up they had Bill Landrum before him.
Right.
And he was good. He was good at that role. He was even decent as a closer. I think we'd mentioned him in the day baseball died. He gotten out of bases loaded jams before. But unfortunately, the reason for his bumness is that one playoff game against the Braves, he gave up a hit to Francisco Cabrera. That was bad. I don't want to be too hard on Stan Belinda. I think it's like kind of the Louis Domingue territory. Like he is who he is. He wasn't like this great player that squandered it all, and he wasn't like a jerk about it. He stood up and took the rep. So I give him a meh. He's not the only reason the Pirates lost. Maybe Jose Lean should have fielded an easy ground ball. And he's not the reason the Pirates have stunk since then. Maybe, the ownership should have spent some money. So I'll let him off. I'm going to let him off the hook. I'm not calling him a hero because he's definitely not that, but he's not a bum either. So he's definitely a solid meh.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe kind of like Tim McKyer, a guy that was maybe a little unfairly scapegoated. He came into that game 7, with, I believe 0 outs. So he got the first 2 outs. And the second out, people never remember this, but it was huge. The second out, he got Brian Hunter to pop up with the bases loaded.
That's what you want to happen. Yeah,
right.
You want to pop
all
up.
Brian Hunter had to do was hit a fly ball there, and the game's tied.
Yeah.
Or even ground a shortstop in a fielder's choice. Like Brian Hunter had an easy chance to tie that game, and he got him to pop up, which meant that all he had to, if he could have got Francisco Cabrera to ground out, fly out, anything that was an out, the Pirates go to the World Series.
Or if Jose Lee fields that ground ball
Yes.
cleanly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then that pop-up would have been the final out. Yeah, Stan Belindo was very close to being in hero status, but I agree. He does not deserve bum status.
Well, moving on to another guy that's there's a lot of guys like this, just, I don't know, one-hit wonders or whatever, but it's weird how some people are bums in that category and some people are heroes.
Yeah,
but like I said, this is all about your perception, and this is just my perception, which is obviously the correct one, Tim. So. Jeff Zatkoff. Does anybody remember this guy? Let's wind the clock back to 2016. It's game 1. Matt Murray has been concussed, and Marc-Andre Fleury is still hurt. And so he's much in the same situation, and it's weird against the Rangers against Tim. That's weird. He's pretty much the same situation that Louis Domingue wasn't he?
Pretty much, yeah. Well,
yeah.
except he started that game. Louis Domingue came in like the first overtime. And I don't think Zatkoff had spicy broccoli before the game either. But other than that, yes, very similar.
So, yeah, he wins the game. And I thought this was a tremendous performance by – because when he was coming in, I thought, the Penguins are done here. But the Penguins played good defense in front of him, and he needed the saves he needed to make, and the Penguins won. And then, unfortunately – his reason for bum, the next game, he kind of went back to, he was like, hey, wait a minute, I'm Jeff Zatkoff. I'm not that good. And he gave up a bunch of goals and the Penguins lost. But it didn't matter because they had won one game in New York, and that's all they needed out of him. And the final decision, I think he's a hero. He won the one game we needed him to win, which is more than Domingue, which I think is the difference. Is like, okay, we just need one game out of you. And that's like, okay. And so, he's a hero. He won that game. He got replaced by Matt Murray, who was done being concussed, I guess. And, and the rest is history as we rolled on to the Stanley Cup from there. So I don't know. I mean, how I can call this guy a hero and Louis Domingue a bum, I don't know. I just think that goal was so egregious by Domingue. It's like, I can't get over it.
Yeah. I think, too, the end result matters, right? With Louis Domingue, they lost that series. With Jeff Zatkoff, not only did they win that series, they went on to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why. If the Penguins win that series in 2022 against the Rangers, even if they don't go on to win the Stanley Cup that year, maybe Domingue's a hero because they don't win that series if he doesn't win that game. And that's Zatkoff. Yeah. They don't win that series potentially if he doesn't win that game. And if they don't win that series, they don't win a Stanley Cup. So that's why I think it's fair to put Zatkoff in the hero category.
Well, moving on to Pirates management and Neil Huntington. I think this is a good one. This is another really good mixed bag here. Reason for hero. He saved the Pirates from a 20 consecutive lost seasons. He found a loophole and exploited it, which was that paying over draft. He would just pay like all these draft picks a bunch of money. It's like the one time the Pirates spent money and started exploiting it. Major League Baseball got mad. What a shocker, huh? Reason for bum. He couldn't sustain the winning, and the Pirates have went back to their losing ways. I think I don't know. I don't think he's a bum because I think he's a hero. I'm going out with that because he at least got the Pirates to a couple winning seasons. It would have been nice if he could have found another loophole or found a way to sustain it, but he just couldn't. And it just was forces beyond his control. Maybe if he had better ownership that could have voted down, would have voted against or formed alliances against those rule changes, he would have been better shape. But as usual, Bob Nutting signing with major market teams doesn't help your cause. So,
yeah, I think here is fair for him. It's not his fault. I mean, he was always climbing an uphill battle no matter what. And he had more success with the team than anybody else has in the past 30 years. And it's not his fault that they had to gut it. It was, like you said, it's the ownership. So,
well, and especially like if you see you're winning this way, wouldn't you have enough sense to like, okay, go to Cincinnati and all the other teams. Hey, let's have let's hold up the vote until we get something we want that can keep us competitive. But
that's not how baseball works, and you know that.
It's just stupid. It's stupid how it works because it's like It's the same thing with like the giant salaries. Like, oh, well, these big players will never vote for a salary cap. If it's real easy to sell it to the players, a salary cap, if you're a Bob Nutting, you're like, hey, we're going to put a salary minimum, which means you're going to make more. And, Scott Boras doesn't have enough pull, enough players. You can vote against them. There's more of the mediocre to just barely in it players than there are the Clayton Kershaws of the world. So,
Yeah, you're making two big assumptions there. One is that the owners of baseball teams all want to do what's good for the sport and not what's good for them. That's number one.
But it
And
would be good for him. Like, I gotta think more people would watch you if you're competitive.
They don't care about that. And number two, the assumption that they don't, that they want a more competitive market. They don't. And you're right. You would think it's like the same argument we always have about college football. Like why wouldn't college football have a playoff? Wouldn't more people watch? Wouldn't you actually make more money instead of having, these ridiculous polls and things like that? But
no, because Ohio State can't get it in.
See, and that's the same thing with baseball. The Red Sox and Dodgers wouldn't be in it or whatever. The NFL is by far the most popular sports league in the country and an unstoppable force for a reason. And it's because way back when, I don't think the current group of owners would make the same decisions, but way back when they decided to do some things that weren't necessarily good for individual teams, but were good for the league. And Pete Rozelle and Art Rooney and George Halas and people like that made those decisions. The Maras, right.
Yeah.
All those people made those decisions, sacrificed some things. And that's why the NFL is where it is, and Major League Baseball is where it is, and college football and everything else. So, but, Major League Baseball, college football, those entities still make barrels of money. So,
so until it gets bad enough that they don't make money anymore,
that's right.
What they're doing. Right. Anyway, moving on to the next guy on our list, the old Mr. Phil Kessel, Tim. Reason for here, part of that HBK line that was unstoppable in 2016, 2017. Reason for Bum, he's just an enigmatic player. Why doesn't he play defense? I don't know. He turns the puck over. He doesn't. I don't know, but he's so good on that line, and they were so dominant, and we won so many Stanley Cups. I don't know. I went with hero for Phil Kessel because he's like Obama said, he's a Stanley Cup champion, and he likes to eat hot dogs out of the Stanley Cup. So I'm all right with that. He looks like a guy you would see in a rec league hockey game, but he's an NHL talent, that's for sure.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you on this one, Steve. Phil Kessel's not a hero. Phil Kessel's an American treasure.
Nice. American treasure.
Hero is far beneath what Phil Kessel is.
Looks like a rec league hockey player, plays like Gordie Howe. Yeah.
Phil Kessel will be beloved in this town 30 years from now. I mean, there's no way anybody's going to see him as a bum.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like what you said about Terry, and like there's guys who have shelf lives.
Yeah.
And that was Kessel. He had a shelf life, and that was used up, and he moved on.
They had to bring in a cold coach, just like they used to call like Rick Tocchet the jerk whisperer. Just come in like.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It's funny. It wasn't the same as like an Antonio Brown. You know what I mean?
No.
Was different.
He just wouldn't play defense. Like, I'm not blocking a shot. Like. Well, Phil Kessel, like you said, American treasure and hot dog lover extraordinaire. So, moving on to mediocre Pitt quarterbacks, being Nathan Peterman. Reason for hero, he got Pitt to an improbable wins over Clemson and Penn State in 2016. He was a Pitt quarterback for a couple of years. Reason for bum, he lost the Navy in the Military Bowl, which I witnessed in person. And he was pretty bad. His arm didn't look right. I think he was hurt or something because he just could not throw the ball well that day. So I rated him as a meh because James Conner really was the star of that offense. And, he was just kind of – he had some good games and he performed when they needed him to. But I don't know that he was the straw that stirred the drink on that offense. What do you think of our friend Nathan Peterman?
Yeah, I think that's by process of elimination, that's a good rating because he's neither hero nor bum. I very much don't care what happens in bowl games because college football has rendered them meaningless. But again, I'm not going to go down that path again. So yeah, he's mad, and kudos to him. He's somehow still playing in the NFL. He's on Chicago now. So he's managed to, and he'll be playing in week 2 of next year. Whenever what's his name, Justin Fields gets hurt, because he runs every single down. So he'll be starting by week 2 or 3.
Oh, your brother should be looking forward to that, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Chicago. It's not like they're going to get much worse. So kudos to him for somehow having a long NFL career, and his NFL career is very much in the MAC category too. So,
well, didn't he have like the 2 interceptions in that game in the playoffs for Buffalo?
There was some infamous game where I think he threw 4 or 5 interceptions in the first half. I don't believe it was a playoff game, but that was pretty bad. But other than that, it's just been he's your standard journeyman backup quarterback. So good for him.
Moving on to other mediocre pick quarterbacks, Bill Stahl. Reason for hero, he got Pitt within a point of going to the Orange Bowl. Wasn't his fault they missed the extra point. Reason for bum, he just was not all that clutch. He was just kind of like another mediocre quarterback on a run-heavy Pitt team. He was kind of like hand the ball off to Dion Lewis kind of guy. But he was good when he needed to be. And he wasn't a bad player. He's probably another like meh kind of guy like Peterman. Good enough, but just not great. I like Bill Stahl though. He's a nice guy.
Yeah,
Peterman
I think
seems okay. Him and Peterman are really the same person, quite honestly.
The only difference I'd say with Stahl is Stahl was never supposed to be the quarterback of that team. They had recruited Pat Bostic, who was very highly recruited, and it didn't work out. And so Stahl was kind of thrust in as the quarterback of that team. I compare him more to like Louis Domingue because it's like he overachieved for a guy that really wasn't supposed to be in the spot he was. And he led them to in 2009, really until the 2021 championship season. That was their best season of really since Dan Marino.
Yeah.
So, he wasn't Kenny Pickett or Dan Marino, leading those teams by any stretch, but he was pretty good. And you're right. He wasn't clutch. That Cincinnati game, he threw a very key interception in the fourth quarter of that game. So, but I don't know. He was an overachiever. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a bum. He was mad, but he was an overachiever.
Next up on our list is Yevgeny Malkin. Reason for hero, he's probably like the 4th or 5th greatest player for the Penguins ever. Yeah. What would you say? Mario, Yager, Sid? Who's after that? Francis, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, he's
in there.
5. He's got to be top 5, yeah.
He scored all kinds of big goals in the playoffs and gotten us to Stanley Cups. I mean, he even plays good defense. I think he's a good defensive player too. He's just a very good player. The reason for bum, it's mainly like sometimes, I don't know, the crazy just comes out in him. He just decides to take insane penalties, especially in the offensive zone. I think he just did this recently. Didn't he take like 4 penalties and get kicked out of the game?
Yeah.
So, Yevgeny Malkin, I'm going for hero because he's won 3 Stanley Cups. He's a legend. He scored big goals. He plays good defense. He just, every once in a while, he loses his mind. So, and who among us hasn't? So,
yeah. He's hero who massively irritates you.
Yeah.
So
he's the ultimate. He's the ultimate no, yes guy. Right. You know what I mean? Right. No, don't do that. Oh, yes. Yeah. So,
yes.
Yep. So another guy that's kind of like in that same category is Chris Letang. So the reason he's a hero, he's probably the Pens' greatest defenseman of all time. He has 154 goals all time, and that's good for 40th all time. And here, I'll play one of his biggest goals here.
Spins. Hangs onto the puck again. Threw it in front. Hornqvist is there in a battle. Crosby to Letang. He shoots. He scores! There's your answer from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Chris Letang.
So you can watch the highlight. We'll post it at our website. But Chris Letang does this incredible spin move, skates behind the net, passes to Crosby, and then he goes to like the side post kind of dot area, would you say, Tim? And then absolutely puts I don't know how that puck went in. Do you know? Like literally, what would you say? There was like a 2-inch spot to put it in, and he put it right in the corner high. And it was the game-winning goal of Game 6 for the Penguins, which they won on the road, as is customary with the Penguins. They always win their Stanley Cups on the road. So he's an amazing
against San Jose that year. Yep.
Yeah,
and that was the cup-winning goal.
Yeah. Reason for bum, he is a turnover machine. He does and he doesn't really play a physical game. Also, reason for hero is, he's overcome some serious medical injuries. Talk about guys he actually has a congenital heart defect that causes him to have blood clots. And he's played a whole, how many years he's been in the league? 10 years, some. So good for Chris Letang. He's a hero. Come on. I hear people complain about him. And I do too. Sometimes he annoys me, but he's another no, yes. He's like, oh my gosh, don't skate in front of the net with your own net with the puck. But then he makes some spectacular play and you score a goal off of it. So let Chris Letang cook, I guess. He's Russell. I don't know. He's a very good player and he's a hero. He scored big goals. Same thing. I was surprised he was low on the all-time list as he was with goal. Is he the best Penguins defenseman? I don't know. The Penguins had Paul Coffey and Larry Murphy play for them, but I guess, Chris Letang's played for them longer. So I don't know, Tim.
I think so he's definitely in hero category. I think with Letang and even Malkin, there's something that happens in this town with sports fans. I think if you play here long enough, which Malkin and Letang have been here, I think 16 seasons, which is a long time. Eventually, people are going to find a lot of your flaws, which and they're not made up flaws either. To your point, these are fair criticisms, and some people are just going to hone in on that and get frustrated by it. But I think what happens is after those guys are gone, they're just remembered fondly as these all-time great players, right? People forget.
Yeah. About
the flaws, and that's probably happened with some of the 70 Steelers players. That's happened with a lot of guys, and I think Letang, you have to put him in that hero category.
Yeah, for sure. Staying with the Penguins, Tom Barrasso. Reason he made the saves, he played well in the Penguins Cup runs from 91 and 92. He's the first American goalie to 300 wins. And he has 369 wins, which is third all-time by an American. I think he's behind Ryan Miller and somebody else. Reason for bum, well, Tim, here you go. I'm going to make you relive this. He gave up that horrible goal in Game 7.
Was this the Florida game?
No, this is the Islanders.
Turns with Ferraro. Here they come, 2-on-1. Bullock shoots, scores! David Bullock, Islanders, and they'll be a new Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, that was bad. That was that was in overtime, wasn't it? The David Bullock goal.
Yep. Game 7 overtime against.
It was
a 2-on-1. I mean, I honestly thought you were going to play the Florida. So they were in the conference finals against Florida in Game 7 in '96, and it was tied. And he gave up a goal from it was Tom Fitzgerald from almost center ice. It felt
there's that one too. Yeah,
I always thought that was more egregious, but both of those were games that no one thought the Penguins were going to lose, and they lost. And Barrasso did not help.
Well, he is kind of a jerk to the media, and
a jerk.
Okay, he is a jerk to the media. Whatever. He's a hero. Come on. 2 Stanley Cups, third most wins by an American goalie in a Vezina trophy. Dude's a hero. He can not talk to the media all he wants. Steve Carlton doesn't either. So, good for him.
Yeah, I don't totally disagree with you. It's just for all the good things he did, there's so much bad with the 2 things we mentioned and just being a jerk to people. It wasn't just the media. I mean, it was his teammates too. Patrick Lalime, when Patrick Lalime came to the Penguins, he was really good as a rookie, and Brasso like berated him and just, he was so threatened by him, that some people might argue that that's the reason Patrick Lalime never had success after that, because Brasso just, tried to ruin him. So he wasn't a good teammate. He wasn't really a great person. So it's hard for me to assign hero status, but then he did win 2 Stanley Cups, and who else has done that? Matt Murray and Tom Barrasso. That's your list of
That's the list.
Penguin goalies that have won multiple Stanley Cups. So hard to argue with that part.
Moving on back to the Steelers, a guy named Mason Rudolph. Reason for hero, boy, I don't know. He has good hair, Tim, right? That's kind of reason for bum. He got in that stupid fight with Myles Garrett. I put him as bum. He never achieved much of anything. He's had so many opportunities, and I know he's gotten some bad breaks, but sometimes you just got to prove yourself above that. And here, I have a video clip. I'm not sure which one this is. Maybe this is him getting hit over the head. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's him getting hit over the head.
Here's a flag as, whoa, hello, whoa. Mason Rudolph got into it.
Get out of there.
What in the world?
And Joe Buck is mystified by Mason Rudolph getting in a fight with Myles Garrett. I don't know what to tell you. He needed to do more. I really thought this guy was going to be really good. I saw him play in college against Pitt, and he lit them up, and I thought he was going to be really good. Maybe he still has a chance. I think he's going to go somewhere else. I get the feeling he's going to be a pretty successful backup. But I thought James Washington was going to be good last year, and look where he is, not in the NFL anymore. So what say you, Tim, on Mr. Mason Rudolph?
Yeah. I wouldn't put him as a bum because of what happened with Myles Garrett. I think that was more on Myles Garrett than on Mason Rudolph. But I would say that, you're right. He had ample opportunity. He was really groomed as Big Ben's successor. And then when it came time to succeed Big Ben, they went out and got 2 other quarterbacks that weren't Mason Rudolph. So yeah.
Yeah, he's not been treated fairly, but
well,
among us
has he? I mean, again,
he had that chance against the Lions, and I think if he does well there, maybe they give him a second look.
The Lions, he had that whole season where Ben was hurt, and I know he got hurt too, but it's just at some point you have to step into that. That's the life of a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
You have to capitalize on your opportunities. He never did.
Yeah. Another Steeler backup quarterback from that same season, Devlin Duck Hodges. Reason for hero, he beat San Diego and Cincinnati. Reason for bum, he couldn't get the Steelers to beat the Jets that year. Him and Rudolph stunk that game, and they just couldn't. I knew going into the game they were going to lose because they just couldn't, score enough points. So here we'll look at the TD real quick of Cincinnati.
All right, Hodges looking deep again. Washington's open. Washington has it. One man to beat. Washington shoves one down. Touchdown! Oh, what a play! 79 yards.
So that's like Duck Hodges' big highlight. I think he beat the team in San Diego, and that was one of the most unbelievable wins. That was just Mike Tomlin pulling it out there. Reason, like I said, he was a minor leaguer. He's probably a bum. He's just a minor leaguer who Mike Tomlin stole a couple wins with, but maybe he's more meh, like more in the Louis Dinning. I have him as a bum, but I could be swayed to meh.
Yeah.
I held that again. It's like they just needed to score like literally 2 touchdowns against the Jets and they win, and they just couldn't do it, and that really annoyed me.
Yeah, it's very similar to Louis Domingue, where like the longer you leave him in, the worse he's going to do. If he needs to come in and steal you a win, then he's a hero. Kind of like Jeff Zatkoff. Again, if Jeff Zatkoff would have played that whole series, we don't remember him as fondly because he'll eventually, like you said, remember that he's Jeff Zatkoff, and that's what happened to Duck.
The old Duck. Now he's making duck calls. He couldn't even make it in the CFL, so go figure. How about Gary Anderson? You remember Gary Anderson, Tim?
I love Gary Anderson.
Yes, he's a hero. Do you know why he's a hero? Because he eliminated Houston from the playoffs in 1989. I bet you all want to watch that, don't you?
So it has come down to this.
Ooh,
Gary
Marv Albert
Anderson,
on the call.
over his career,
Yes!
has connected 6 times from 50 plus, 6 out of 15. He's hit from 49 on 2 occasions this season. This would win it. And Anderson's kick is good. The Pittsburgh Steelers have upset the Houston Oilers in the AFC wild card. They have done it by the score of 26-23 and will advance to go up against the Denver Broncos next Sunday.
Hey, I wonder if they shook hands. I wonder if Jerry Glanville and Chuck Noll shook hands after that. Anyway, yes, so he's a hero for kicks like that. He was really good on turf and really reliable kicker in Three River Stadium. Reason for bum, he couldn't kick on grass. And then he left for free agency. And then I guess if you asked if this podcast was a Minnesota Vikings podcast, he would definitely be a bum.
Yeah.
Because he missed one field goal a year, and unfortunately that was the one that would have locked up the NFC Championship for him. So I think he's a hero in Pittsburgh, at least. I can't speak for the great people of Minnesota. So
Yeah, he's a hero. He was for almost a whole decade, he was the Steelers' best offensive player. I mean, that's the literal truth. So yeah, he's a hero.
Next up is Mr. Mike Tomczak. He's a hero because he got to the Steelers to the playoffs in 1996. And he beat the Colts in that same playoff year in the wild card game. Reason for bum, he threw way too many interceptions. I think he was a little better than mediocre. And I kind of rated him as another guy that's just kind of a meh. He was very up and down, was never bad enough to bench, was never good enough to win the game. But he's definitely better than like Duck Hodges or even Mason Rudolph. But he just wasn't – you probably weren't going to win like the Super Bowl with him. So I like Mike Tomczak. He was a very like solid quarterback. But once again, I think he's better than like Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges. But he's definitely not, maybe going to win you a Super Bowl. I mean, fair assessment, Tim?
Fair assessment. When he was backing up Neil O'Donnell, there were a couple of times where he had to come in for 2 or 3 games, and one time he beat Dan Marino in a huge game at home. Right. So again, just like so many other guys on this list, what came in, could steal you some wins. The longer you left him in, the worse it got. And I think he had a longer, like you could leave him in longer than Jeff Zatkoff or Duck Hodges, right? You know what I'm saying? But eventually you just keep leaving him, make him start the whole season like he did in 96, and then he turned into an interception machine.
Yeah, sounds about right. Hey, sticking with the theme of Steeler quarterbacks that we'd probably like to forget. Another guy that went to the Broncos and won a Super Bowl, that would be one Bubby Brister. And I know you know this guy, Tim. This is the quarterback of your youth, huh? Or was it Mark?
Yeah.
I don't have Mark Malone on. I don't have Mark Malone on this list, but I do have Bubby Brister. Reason for hero, we already played that highlight of Houston. He was the quarterback. He beat Houston that day in 89. He also had a career day in 1990 against the Broncos, throwing 4 touchdowns. Reason for bum, throwing interceptions and making boneheaded plays. And after this, they were losing to Houston 31-6 in 1991. And I guess Neil O'Donnell got pulled, and Chuck Noll wanted the Bubster to go in. And this is the Bubster's quote here. I don't mop up for anybody after refusing to play in the fourth quarter of Sunday's 31-6 loss to Houston. So that's from the Tampa Bay paper. So Bubby was no mop-up quarterback. Then Bubby figured out that maybe he was a mop-up quarterback, and he mopped up for John Elway and the Broncos all the way to a Super Bowl. So he mopped himself into a Super Bowl ring there. Good for the Bubster. I think he's both. He's like the Steve Peterson. He's a bum and a hero. Won a big playoff, and then he was definitely a jerk about it. So you love Bubby, huh, Tim?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was just a character more than anything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how good of a quarterback was he okay? I don't know.
No, he was not a good quarterback. But he, again, kind of like Bill Stahl, some of the other guys, he overachieved that 89 season. He really overachieved and had his moment. So good for him.
Okay, we're gonna go with another Penguin, Brandon Sutter. He was a decent center. He won a no, he did not win a Stanley Cup. He was a decent center, but he was traded. He was part of the trade. They traded Jordan Stahl to Carolina and got Brandon Sutter. And he was not Jordan Stahl, and that was the problem. He was very mediocre. But I'm saying he's a hero because he was traded for Nick Bonino in 2015. So he didn't do much with the Penguins, but he ended up being a hero because he brought Nick Bonino here. Hero status for Brandon Sutter. He's related to a great hockey player.
Yeah, to me he's a bum because he, like you said, he was, the Penguins never matched what they had with Stahl until they had that HBK line. And he could never fill that void. So unfortunate for him, but it just never worked out. I will not have good fond memories of that guy, I don't think.
How about Jim Rutherford, sticking with the Penguins theme here? We'll finish up with the Penguins here. Reason for hero, he traded, traded for Nick Bonino, Phil Kessel, Trevor Daley, Carl Hagelin. He won 2 Stanley Cups with the Penguins. So that's his hero. Reason for bum, he traded away Kasperi Kapanen, and then I think he got him back too. He traded away Matt Murray. He lost Bonino, traded away Hagelin, then lost his temper and quit the Penguins on the spur of the moment, leaving them without a GM. So I don't know. I gave him hero status because he definitely won 2 Stanley Cups, and that HBK line is probably one of the legendary lines in hockey, if not the Pittsburgh Penguins. Would you still give him hero status even though the way he left?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he again, any GM is going to have their good moves and their bad moves. He wasn't here long enough to see if he could eventually turn the bad moves into good moves. But winning the 2 Stanley Cups, it didn't matter after that.
My favorite movie is he just kept trading for Kasperi Kapanen.
He loved him some Kasperi Kapanen.
And last but certainly not least, we're going to finish up with Eddie DeBartolo Sr., not Jr. And the reason for here is he owned the Penguins in the lean years and was smart enough to sign Mario Lemieux. DeBartolo said this about the 49ers. He tried to run the 49ers like a family rather than a business. I viewed the players and myself really basically as a partnership. Our goal was to win the Super Bowl every year, and we had to do that together. And I think he kind of ran the Penguins the same way. Reason for bum was he had to sell the team in 1991 because of the real estate collapse. And that was due to the housing market. If you remember Black Monday in October of 87, there was a big recession. So it really wasn't his fault. And that kind of killed the Penguins because, he had to sell it to the guy who really is a bum. I didn't even bother on the list because this isn't even debatable. Howard Baldwin. Yeah. And so the final verdict, I think he's a hero. He held the Pens together through the lean years. He also created Century 3 Mall. You can't argue with that. And that was great way back in the 80s. So I like Eddie DeBartolo Sr. The Penguins wouldn't be here without him. The Penguins aren't almost here because of Howard Baldwin. But what say you, Tim? Eddie DeBartolo Sr. a hero or bum?
Yeah, I'd say hero. And Century 3 Mall had not one but 2 arcades. One on the first floor, one on the third floor.
That's hero status.
So that alone is hero status to me when I was a kid.
Well, thank you for listening, and hopefully you won't rate our podcast as a bum status, only as hero. Definitely not meh, but thanks for listening, and check us out on all the usual podcast sources, and we'll catch you next time.